Hello there, we are back to school. Do you remember what it was like when you were a child and you were creating and you were coloring and drawing and you were always coloring outside the lines? Good for you. In this video, we're going to be talking about the creative process and how it helps us, and especially how it helps our children with them returning back to school. And the creative process is an amazing, amazing thing. And so we're going to be talking about that. And we have a very esteemed guest coming up, and he's going to share more about how the creative process helps students excel. And but it's parallel. It's for you too. So I hope you'll stay and watch. Hello there and welcome. This is Shelly with Life Creates Art, and I'm so happy you're here. Thank you to my new subscribers. Welcome to the channel. And we are building a great community of helping people expand their creative minds and making sure that your life and your family life and your relationships are masterpieces. So you join me on Facebook and Instagram as well, and join that little community, and you'll be encouraged, I promise. And I would love to hear from you. So please make comments and let me know what you'd like to see. So now we're talking about the creative process. Kids are going back to school right now. There are so many things you can be doing with your kids. And all of these things that I'm going to be talking about, just an FYI, in the video, the products are in the link below. So if you click on the links, it's easy for you to order and easy for you to get things to you and to your children. And it'll help me and Jason continue to bring Life Creates Art to you. So, creative process. I'm very disturbed right now about the direction that young people are going. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of creativity, a lot of kindness in the world. And a lot of those things can be helped with continuing to help kids be in the creative process. As you've heard on my channel, it'll help you too. That's what Life Creates Art is all about, is helping you take your life and use it as a therapy in your art as a therapy. As youngsters, you know, we were always doing art, and then we're coloring and we're cutting and we're gluing, and we were artistic people when we were young. And yet something happened to some of us, and maybe somebody said, oh, this person's is better than yours, or maybe you just didn't like what you were doing, but you were creative. You were drawing and cutting and gluing and doing all those fun, creative things. And so when did it stop for you? And that's part of my message is I don't want it to stop for our young people. They're going back into school and they're going to be facing all of the difficulties of the drama and the judgment and things like that. Kids can be cruel. And so the arts can help kids to deal with that emotionally. And also it can build their self-esteem. Creativity stimulates our brain. It stimulates our mind. Painting, drawing, music, theater arts, sculpting, all of those things add a creative spark. It works both sides of the brain, and it helps stimulate those neurons that need to be stimulated in our lives to help keep us calm. It's so important that we do that for our children, that we continue to allow them to be creative human beings and color outside the lines. Get them a color book. I don't care how old they are. Get them a color book, but it will help control all of those hormones and things that are going on in their head. So, talking to Mr Burkhead, and he is an amazing man, very experienced, and you're going to learn a lot about art education and what it does for your child. Remember, even if you don't have school-age children, your grandchildren are going to be school-age soon. And also, go grab a neighbor kid and have them come over and paint a little picture. Get involved with your community. Get involved with the youth, because it is very disturbing how there's not a lot of empathy. There's not a lot of creativity in young people. They're all doing the video games and go to school, come home, do video games. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit more with Bill. So get yourself up, draw outside the lines, see things differently, and expand your mind and your child's creative mind, and it will help you. I promise. Have a great, great day. And next I'm talking with Bill. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I want to introduce you to the man of the hour. I told you that this was an incredibly esteemed instructor, Mr. William Burkhead. And of course, most people call him B, but it goes by
among
Bill
other
too.
things.
So anyway, I actually want Bill to tell you about his history, but coming from our family, this man has been instrumental in sort of creating the, I suppose, the basis of our son's character who came from his family, but B has certainly been a huge part of molding it. And that's really what the arts are all about, is taking someone who loves and cares for the kids and putting them into a program that will stimulate them. So, B, I'm going to call you B, if that's
Absolutely.
all right.
Yeah, totally fine. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your history as an instructor. Where did you come from?
Okay, well, I started teaching in a little town called Red Bluff, which is about 4 hours north of here, up in the Sacramento Valley, way up north.
California, by the way.
Yeah, close to where I grew up. I grew up in Redding, so, not too much further up. I was there for 3 years, and it was a very unique situation in that the music and theater programs were very integrated. And we hadn't seen a lot of that around most schools. Still, unfortunately, you find that there's the music department over on one side of the school and the theater department's over there, and maybe you'll have a dance department there somewhere else. And there's even more divisions, like the choir and the band don't have much to do with each other. It's a lot of that, little separate kingdoms. And I was really lucky that my first teaching job was in a place that was very integrated and kids crossed over between disciplines all the time. Yeah. And I thought, well, that's how it ought to be, of course.
Well, of course,
right.
Of course.
So I was there for 3 years, learned an immense amount of everything about everything from, basics of teaching to just really laying a good foundation for what I would later do once I got here to Del Mar.
So what age? Because this is a high school.
Right. I taught high school. I also taught for a year junior high school band.
Oh, okay.
And I discovered that, they're all praise to all the people who do junior high school. That is not my gift. As a friend of mine would say, my gifts lie with the kids who are coming out of that world of chaos called middle school and helping them to find their path and get ready for life 101, which happens, right after they graduate from us, whatever that path looks like. From there, I went to moved to San Francisco, started teaching in Daly City. So I went from this, very large school out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
To this intense school in the literally inner city.
Wow.
And there was no department. There was just me. Pardon me. So
that's the way it is now, though, isn't it?
Well, no, there's been some shifts. I'll tell you about that. So when I was at Jefferson High in Daly City, I was the band director. I was the drama teacher. And then to fill out my schedule, they gave me, whatever else. I mean, I taught, Title I English. I taught sex ed to seniors who hadn't passed it the first time. Holy cow. I had some interesting classes during that time.
You have some great stories.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I got to, I was the ASB director for a year at that site, So in addition to, of course, the teaching load, I'm, that crazy person who says, oh, well, we've got to do shows. We have to do, something, in addition.
I'll do it.
Right. Yeah. I didn't learn the word no really ever. So during that time, I directed shows and I did the marching band, and I mean, we just did it all. And I was young enough then that I didn't know any better. But then I was there for 3 years, and then I got recruited away from there and to Del Mar. And I got a phone call one day from the principal who said, hey, we're looking for a band director, music director, and it's a full-time music gig. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's what I've wanted my whole career up to that point. So I came down, I checked out the school, I interviewed. They like to joke about at the time that I interviewed them as much as they interviewed me.
Well, sure. I think you need to do that.
Well, you do. You really do. You need to know, why is this? First of all, they were interviewing me in August, so it's like I had some questions.
Oh, sure.
Why are you hiring in August? What happened?
Yeah.
And there'd been some chaos before. So when I got here to Del Mar, and that I won't tell you quite how many years ago that was.
Okay, all right.
It was a few years ago. There were literally 9 kids in the band.
Whoa!
9 kids. I have a picture somewhere around here in my office of the 9 kids.
We'll have to take a picture of that.
Yeah, and they, God love them, they were out there running their own band camp.
No kidding.
They didn't have a director. Didn't have anybody supporting them other than the fact the principal said, yes, I'm going to get you a teacher, but that's all I can offer right now.
Ooh, wow.
So they were running their own band camp.
And very self-directed.
Very self-directed. So I thought to myself, that's the kind of kid I want to work with. Mm-hmm. I want to see what I can do with that. And here we are 20 years later.
Wow.
And while we're not a big program by any stretch of the imagination, we're marching band is still kind of a small group, but we have grown to the size now where we've got 2 bands as regular classes, plus the marching band, plus our choral program has gone through some interesting changes over the years, and here we are in about to be 2020, and lots of exciting things going on.
So what do you think that being in the arts does to help these kids? Because I know you announced last year that you had several students with 4.0s, and they were all in the band.
Yeah, that's true.
So talk about that.
Research has shown over many years now, and it keeps piling on, that kids who are in music specifically and performing arts in general will have higher grades. First of all, they're more articulate. They're able to process complex operations quicker and more thoroughly.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Math, reading, writing.
They're also problem solvers. They're also more collaborative, because the nature of what we do it causes the brain to function more holistically. So if you were to look at brain scans, and there's research out there that'll show you this.
Yeah.
A kid playing an instrument, the neurons are firing on both sides of the brain instead of just one or the other. So you're getting that, right brain, left brain stuff going on, where they have to be doing, mechanical things from memory more often than not. But then there's the side of the brain that has the creative side, what we commonly call the left brain stuff, where they have to make decisions about shaping a phrase, how to articulate a note, how to sing a note, and make the dynamics work, how to do the language. And especially with my singers, they're not singing in English all the time. They're singing in French and Italian and Latin and sometimes German and sometimes an African language that they've never touched before in their life. And your conscious brain is processing all of this stuff. And then you've got the unconscious brain that's also highly engaged. Right. There's a wonderful book came out in the 70s called The Inner Game of Tennis, which doesn't seem like it has a whole lot to do with anything music, but it was written by a neurologist who actually lived up in Walnut Creek at the time. Okay. And I'm telling the story kind of secondhand because this was introduced to me by my master teacher when I was in college back in the 80s, way long time ago. That was in the last century, by the way. Okay, so
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I know, right? So what he did was he discovered that, his assertion was that the conscious brain can process 7 things per second.
Okay.
So you can consciously and track 7 things per second. The unconscious brain doesn't have a speed limit. And so when we are practicing multiple repetitions, and it does take multiple repetitions. He was looking at it from the side of, how do superior athletes do what they do, at a certain point where it becomes artistry.
Yeah.
It gets past the mechanical. Anybody can hit a tennis ball. but not everybody is a Venus Williams, you know? And when you watch her play, it's almost like watching a dancer dance. And so the corollary isn't far removed. You know, when you practice legitimately, really thoroughly, you are taking what you see on the page and programming it into the unconscious brain. It becomes something you don't have to think about, because then you can free up the conscious brain for phrasing, dynamics, articulations, other sorts of artistic considerations that, you know, tell me the last time in an English class you had time to think about, you know, anything other than the mechanics of what you were doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. In a science class, you're so focused on, because if you don't do it the right way, you're going to blow something up. You know, you've got to, you know, really hone those skills. And in music and in performing arts, we're the only discipline that you really get to do the whole brain all the time while you're engaged in the activity.
While you're engaging,
right.
Yes. So I talked to you just today, and you guys have heard me so many times. This is why I do stretching with sketching, because we do the mechanics, but you really want to be led, because there's no rules necessarily in art and drawing and things like that. So you want to be led by that unconscious
exactly.
that sort of leads you. And so that way it comes from here. And that's really when students do music, they need that left brain mechanics, but you really want it to come from here, and they need to find that place.
Right. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but the search and the effort to get there has just myriad benefits. Also, you'll see, there's a popular meme out there amongst the choral people who say, if you sing for 20 to 30 minutes a day, it helps to fight depression. No kidding.
Yeah.
Because there's so much that goes on emotionally with the art and craft of making music that you don't have time to worry about other.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
And I tell my kids when they walk in the door, I said, I don't care if your best friend just, flamed you on Insta, Twitter, whatever, when you walk through that door, that all gets to stay out there. You get to leave all of your drama, trauma, whatever outside, because in here we've got a job to do, and that's to make art and make music and make joy.
So which in turn makes these young people, as growing into adults, it turns them into people that know how to know their limits and know, this is here and this is here. And with my emotions, I need to just sort of breathe and back off and enter into this professional thing and be okay.
Absolutely.
So that's really good. Those are great skills. So emotionally now, because I talk a lot on this channel about putting your emotions into your art, it's really a therapy. And have you found that with some of the students in the past?
Absolutely.
Students that were maybe troubled kids?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason why, the kids who are commonly called the geeky kids, the outsider kids.
I love geeks, by the way.
They all kind of gravitate towards, performing arts world, be it in theater or in music. They find their tribe, so to speak, through that, because you have those opportunities to explore your feelings in some very healthy and creative ways, as opposed to the people who don't have access to that. And, we've seen all of that. And I've had kids over the years who literally have told me that it has saved their lives.
I'm sure.
Well,
sure. Because I even wrote this down. I mean, it helps them, because I was going to ask you about that, about theater art specifically. But I read a quote that said that it helps them connect with the outside world and deal with real world situations in a safe environment.
Exactly.
And so they basically, they get kind of practice to deal with these situations. Right. And then they can apply it to their own life.
Well, especially in the world of theater. I mean, in the world of, like Shakespeare, and we just did Merry Wives of Windsor last year, which deals with women who are being essentially sexually harassed. Married women who are being harassed by this guy who thinks he's all that. And these women, and Shakespeare wrote this 400 some odd years ago.
Yeah.
Guy was onto something. But he crafted this story of comeuppance where it was, it made the point really clear to that character, no, you do not get to behave that way with us. And just step back, Jack.
So it helps
them to find and to define boundaries for themselves of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in their lives. And that's just one example. I mean, there's all sorts of things. You talk about all sorts of kinds of theater. A popular show that's out right now called Dear Evan Hansen deals with, a great show, powerhouse show, and it deals with teenagers confronting suicide and bullying and gossip and divorce. I mean, there's so many issues involved in that show, and kids gravitate towards that because they're dealing with that on a day-to-day basis. That's the normal American teenage thing. I wish I didn't get to say that, but a lot of kids go through those experiences. And so theater and music and art allow kids the space and the time to process those feelings in ways that they just don't get anywhere else. I do know that all of those kids eventually gravitate towards what we offer here because they're looking for that place where they can explore good feelings and bad feelings and all of the feelings.
Yeah, and be accepted too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, oh, holy cow! When I first started teaching, so many years ago, it was a big deal if a kid came out. I'm gay or lesbian. That was a huge deal. And nowadays, I'm like, most kids who go, yeah, and the rest are like, yeah, good on you. And it's like, okay, and what are you having for lunch today?
Yeah.
Now that's not to say that we're not still dealing with some pretty heavy issues. I've got transgender kids. I have had kids who have dealt with everything from abuse at home to, crazy relatives to neighbors to gang stuff. I mean, it's all out there. Yeah. It's all out there. And they come into this world, into our performing arts world, hopefully knowing that they have a place where they can explore some other options, some other ways of dealing with it than what society has told them is okay or not okay.
Sometimes the situations we find ourselves in, you've heard me say this before, can make you stronger and bring you up to a new level in your life. But having the arts, whether it be drawing and getting your feelings out onto a page or onto a canvas, or music or creating music or theater, like B said, working those life lessons in a safe environment, it helps children. And you as an adult, you can do these things. Like I said earlier in the video, we were kindergartners and we were all artists. We were all coloring and we were all singing and dancing without fear. And something happened to us that curbed that creativity. And so you can still do that. Reach out, be bold. So you have a few, just a couple of specific situations. You have a couple of students that you have really known that, like you said, this one told me it saved his life, his or her life. Are there any students that are, just because of the arts you've seen, or moving on? I mean, I interviewed Serendipity, and so she's just off and rolling on her life.
Yeah, she's a powerhouse, that one. We have kids who are out in the world doing some amazing work. I just met this summer in New York with a former student of mine who, when he was here, his parents were, I don't think I ever saw them once at a concert.
Oh, wow.
Not supportive in the least. Like they would bring him and drop him and go.
Wow.
He ended up, when we opened our theater, he was the first one to just go, what are all these toys? How do I learn all of this? And he did immediately. Wow. He just got in there and started going crazy and discovering and learning and having fun with the technology side of things. And so when he graduated, his family moved to Kentucky, something in the Midwest, middle of the country, and he found a college that had a decent theater tech program, and he enrolled. He graduated, got his degree, was out on the road with the Rent Tour for 6 months, and is now working for a regional theater just outside of New York City as a professional electrician rigger for a theater company.
Wow.
And his path is to continue doing that. Eventually, he may do, something on Broadway, but his passion was ignited through that. And,
but it came out of not having a lot of family support.
Oh, zero. Pretty much zero family support. Yeah. Had another young man who, great family, very supportive family, came to me as a freshman, after our first concert, just in tears going, "Oh my God, how do I tell my parents that I'm gay?" I'm like, well, first question, do you have to right now? Because we've got a concert in about 10 minutes. Can we do that first? Let's do that. And, so he dealt with that process over the course of his high school years. Thought he was going to do music as a major. Turns out he was more into theater, especially theater technology. He started working for Great America. He worked for them for like almost 2 years, which is another great pathway
Very
for
nice.
kids who come out of our program. It's just it's really gratifying to see kids who go on and do things like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so I wrote down a few things here about how music helps, and we've mentioned a lot of them here. I want to reiterate them, though. Being creative brings to young people and to you as an adult a self-esteem, confidence, social development.
Oh, absolutely.
Self-worth, discipline, concentration skills. You mentioned those, problem solving.
Absolutely.
Self-directed learning. We talked a lot about that. Kids who are in the arts often have a higher attendance and higher test scores. You had
absolutely
valedictorians.
Actually the last few years, and our school recently became an international baccalaureate school, which is a pretty intense, rigorous academic program. Yeah. And not last year, but the year before, the two valedictorians, they were co-valedictorians, valedictorian, salutatorian. The top two were my first and second chair flute players in the symphonic band. Both diploma candidates. They both got the IB diploma and have gone on to college doing, whatever it was that they were going to major. Thing. Yeah, they're not majoring in music, but that's okay.
That's okay, because it gets
most people who are in high school music programs are not going to major in music, and that's okay. We're not interested in making more music majors. Believe me, the field is crowded enough as it is. What we're interested in is making people who are joyful, healthy, engaged souls who are going to go out and, change the world in whatever they're going to do.
Absolutely.
I have new this year up on my wall over here, what we call the Wall of Fame. But, Neil Armstrong, who first man on the moon, played baritone in high school and college.
Oh, well.
Bill Clinton, president, played saxophone high school and college. Yeah. There's a ton of people out there that have done their high school music program who then go on to amazing careers in other places that literally change the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what we're after.
Well, I think that you are just a phenomenal man, and thank you for all the years, all the people that you've touched through the years, and in such an important place. And the No Child Left Behind really did damage to the arts programs, didn't it?
It left every child behind, in my opinion.
Well, because what I read was that that only 17% of kids actually are involved in the arts or music programs.
Yeah.
And less than 30% even take an art class.
Yeah. Yeah, what that legislation did, I mean, I get where their thinking was. It was, the best intentions, sometimes lead you down some unfortunate paths. The problem was that the focus went so far into the standardized testing and the high stakes testing that they created out of that school districts across the country, it wasn't just in California, it was across the country, were slashing arts programs so that kids could take more math, more reading, more other stuff. And by no coincidence, we suddenly saw a big uptick in teenage drug use, teenage pregnancy, violence in our schools, also all of these other very negative consequences. And though I have not seen a study that does a direct corollary connection to those dots, it's clear to those of us who've been around a long time that, once those kids didn't have access to those outlets any longer, well, they're going to find some other outlets.
Yeah.
And those other outlets usually end up being very negative, unfortunately. In some of our Bay Area communities where elementary programs are being restarted, because without that elementary program, with that foundation, you can't get a good high school program. I mean, if you look around the state at the high school programs that have, phenomenal results, and they've got, multiple bands and multiple orchestras and multiple choirs and all that stuff going on, you backtrack through the grades and you notice that, oh, well, they start in kindergarten with classroom music. That classroom music piece is essential for the kids who eventually want to learn how to play an instrument in late elementary, early middle school, those kids are then essential to building a strong high school program and then having those kids go out into the world.
We talk about that. And I just told you in the video this morning that even if you have to go grab your neighbor kids, make some sort of contribution to these young people's minds, because really the arts, even if you sing with them or if you paint with them or if you do play acting, whatever, your own children, your grandchildren, it's essential that they have that foundation so that when they get to people like B, that they learn that self-discipline. And Mr. B, you have an incredible program. Something I've always admired you for is, and I value that for my own son, simply because you bring all of the schools in the district together, and these kids work together. They work on the theater. Was it Theater Fest?
Theater Fest, yeah.
I mean, it's all these different schools that come together.
We're lucky. I mean, it's a collaborative effort, all of us. In fact, we've got a workshop later this week where all of the music and all the theater teachers are going to be working together on those very kinds of things. And we're very lucky that we have a school district that aggressively supports arts education. Far more than what we see in many other districts around us, but thankfully we're in Silicon Valley where these are valued, and these are kids, and we have a lot of kids, just average kids, who go out into, whatever job, and the kids who come out of our programs, be it at Del Mar or Prospect or wherever, they're able to get and keep those jobs because they are more collaborative, they are better problem solvers, they are stronger communicators in all areas. I mean, are they flawless? Of course not. They're children, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
But you know what? They have a better shot than the kid who never takes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I get to see a lot of those kids too. I teach another class that's for kids who have not passed their math or their English or their whatever. And these are kids I've never seen before in my life. And I'm like, why were you not in an arts class?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, and they, you hear all sorts of stories about what that was about. And
yeah. Thank you so much. It's been such an honor to talk with you and chat with you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Campbell Union High School District, for being so supportive of these students, and especially Mr. Burkhead and all of the teachers in the district. So thank you. Thank you so much. And I appreciate it. And thank you. Value everything that you do, and for the kids.
Thank you so much.
All right. This is Shelly signing out, and I will see you all next week. Bye.